Paraphrase Shakespeare, lend us your ears. We'll pay it back with interest.
Everything you want to hear from the voice of Cerritos College, WPMD on the Nets, where people make a difference.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the edition of the Falcon Spotlight. This week's edition features a new guest. At this time, I'd like my guest to please introduce himself.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for inviting me. I'm Dr. Joanna Schilling. I'm Vice President of Academic Affairs at Cerritos College.
Hi, everybody. I am Brenna Varney. I am member of several clubs. I am former president of International Students Association. I am now former ICC rep of EOPS Club, and now trying to be another officer probably of Spanish Club or other clubs. I am a member of Carbacata Club, K-Pop Club, QSA, and Psychology Club. And I am a psych major.
Excellent.
Wow, that makes me feel like an underachiever.
So I know that, every week, I try to feature a new guest, and it's always, usually they're a student who's involved on campus, student government, clubs, etc., and also, faculty or community leaders as well, because, I feel that it's also a great way to inspire students. They relate best also when they get to hear, their story of that person, how they got to where they are, there are situations where, we can always relate, like, how was school like for you? Were you in clubs? Did you know right away what you wanted to major in?
Well, no, and no. Okay, there were quite a few questions there. So to take the last question first, did I know what I wanted to major in? Actually, in that case, yes. So when I was in high school, I was a theater and music person. So I did lots of shows and sang in choirs and played in the band and did a lot of musical, theatrical type of work in high school. So I definitely knew that I wanted to be an actor or somebody associated with the arts in some way. But my father didn't really think that was the best idea for my future. And my dad loved me, and he was a great dad, but, he wanted me to be able to earn a good living, and the statistics aren't so great for the arts. But so I wanted to please my dad and also do the things that I wanted to do. So I went to college, and my first year, I was on the quarter system, and my first 2 quarters I was failing miserably because I was auditioning for plays and doing musical groups outside, in clubs outside of class, while I was also trying to be a business major and get, good grades in my business classes, and my heart just wasn't in it. So I was taking, maybe 28 credits for my first quarter, and it was the same in those days as it is now. That's way more than a full-time load. So for obvious reasons, I was not doing well. So my dad sat me down, and really we sort of had a heart-to-heart, and he recognized that I was not happy where I was. And so we made a plan that I would drop out of school and I would try to be an actor, and that he wasn't going to give me financial support, but he would give me, emotional support. And he made me make a plan. So I had to do a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, and a 5-year plan, which sounds really dull and boring, but it sounded dull and boring to me at the time too. But it was, looking back on it now, I think it was one of the most loving things that anyone has ever done for me, because we literally had to check in. He would make me check in with him, and we would go through the plan. Well, how far did you get on the first year plan? And in 3 years, how far are you on the 3-year plan? And we had things like, the first year I would be in X number of plays, and the second year I would become a member of Actors Equity, which is not so easy to do because you actually have to be in a play to a professional play to get your actors equity card, which was the professional union. So we set out, kind of tangible goals that would show progress, meaning, could I actually do this for a living? So I was very fortunate. So for 7 years, so I pretty much out of high school, I went for 2 quarters to college. I was traveling the world and being mildly successful and being in plays. I actually was on Broadway and did musical theater and did cruise ships and all sorts of things, which sounds a lot more glamorous than it actually was, because it was a lot of hard work. And as soon as you're in a play, you're always planning on the play ending and what your next audition is going to be, and go to way more auditions that you don't get than ones that you do. But I was really fortunate, and I really do believe it was because my dad made me be really practical and pragmatic in my goals. And there were a lot of other people who were much more talented than I was, but I actually was able to make a living because I think he kind of kept me focused. So, and I was living in New York. My dad lived in California, so I didn't see him all that much, and there were no cell phones then, so it wasn't like we were talking on the phone all the time. But after about 5-6 years, I started really feeling like I wasn't quite sure what the next step was, and that's what finally led me to go back to school. So I went back to school at age 25 to get my undergraduate degree. So it's not very different than many students at Cerritos. And I always tell students that there isn't just one straight shot. There's not one straight line that you're supposed to follow, like somehow life is prescribed and everybody's supposed to do things the same way. There's a traditional way that can really be beneficial to you, which is you go to college at the right time and you finish in a certain amount of years and you get a job. But there's all of life after that, So I got my undergraduate degree, and then I worked for quite a few years, well, about 5 years, I guess. And then I went back to get my master's in playwriting. So I still was in the arts, and I still wanted to stay in the arts, but I shifted my focus. So I wasn't really focusing on performing anymore. I was doing more writing.
Excellent. So the process in which, having to go ahead and study and everything, sometimes time management can be stressful. How did you go about balancing your classes? Were you stressed out during midterms and finals like everybody?
Yes. I mean, I think the thing about school is that, it all happens at the same time, right? So you get these little down periods, but then your finals, your midterms, everything seems to kind of all happen at the same time. And if you have a job, which, most of our students do, and I had a job when I was in college, sometimes you just think you're just never going to get through it. How am I going to possibly get all of this work done? The good thing about school is that once you do get it done, you do get a little break anyways. You finish your finals, you finish your papers. It's sort of that hellish, week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks before that feels so terrible, but it does end. Whereas I think sometimes with jobs, and this, I always like to share this with students, because I think it's really important that you find work that really addresses a need for you. So no one can really tell you what that is. Some people really need their job to be meaningful, meaning that, I think everyone wants their job to be meaningful, but there may be other goals. Some people work because it provides, resources that they can take care of their family. I think a job itself is intrinsically meaningful is asking a lot of a job, but you have to find other things for why you're doing what you're doing. So if you're in a job that's making a certain amount of money, it's really not to make the money. It's the things that you can do with that money. It's the things that you can give. And if your meaning is to share it with others, then making a lot of money might be meaningful, because then you're sharing it with the people in your life that mean something to you, and maybe people who are less fortunate. Other people need really intrinsic meaning from the work they do, and so working for a nonprofit, working, with animals, working with organizations that are taking care of people in need, you really have to define for yourself what that work that you do is going to mean to your life, because that's what keeps you in it. That's what keeps you going. That's what keeps you embracing the work that you do. And it changes. It's never just one thing, like I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I just don't think anybody operates that way.
Definitely. We'll be right back after these public service announcements.
Welcome back to The Cat Show. Up next we have Nico. Nico is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right. A group known especially for their sunspot sleeping, ball chasing, leg rubbing, couch purring, bed leaping, and of course companionship.
Wonderful. And what breed would you say Nico is?
I'd have to go with a tabbyish Persian kind of mix.
Tremendous cat.
I'd also like to point out her coat's wonderful mix of colors. Is it black, gray, gray-black, brown?
Somewhere in between.
Indeed.
It's always special when we get to see a cat like this.
Just look how she struts.
It's like she owns the place.
And how she's so incredibly cute in her indifference to commands.
A strong-willed feline.
And see how she curls up and cuddles her person.
The pitch on her purring is simply perfect.
Nice one.
I know. Fantastic cat.
Fantastic indeed. But really the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Nico is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
The need for blood is constant, and sometimes that need becomes critical. From accident victims and cancer patients to premature babies and those with blood disorders, hospital patients rely on all of us to make sure that blood is on the shelves and ready to help. That's why the American Red Cross needs you. Make an appointment to give blood today by calling 1-800-RED-CROSS or visit redcrossblood.org. Your one blood donation can help save up to 3 lives. A public service announcement from WPMD.
Nothing better demonstrates an artist's ability to perform, to connect with his audience, than his work on stage. At the WPMD Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we bring you Roadwork. A series of great concerts, start to finish, uninterrupted, from the greatest names in rock and roll. All from the WPMD archives. Some haven't aired in years, some have never aired at all. And you have the best seat in the house, right in front of your speakers. Roadwork. Throughout the week, on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, on WPMD on the Net, where people make a difference.
Welcome back to the Falcon Spotlight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Rob GF, here at WPMD Studios, located at Cerritos College, Norwalk, California. And I'm back here with my guests. And yeah, definitely, I think we all find a subject that we like, a field that we enjoy when we're, pursuing our education. Like for me, totally, broadcasting has been very beneficial. I know that when we had our, radio production class, this type of field taught us some very interesting things about the industry, and I could relate to the whole acting thing because when we had the class, one of the unique things that they would have for us is cold copy readings. So we get to practice, portraying characters and just reading with a partner and trying to do real commercials that our instructor would have from commercials that were aired in the past in the industry. It's very fascinating, that type of stuff. But definitely, this has been a great experience for me doing radio here. What got you into the acting?
Well, I think, first, if you don't mind if I just comment on, what you said about your working with the radio, that I also think that we put way too much focus on education leading to what we're going to do for the rest of our life. Because what you're learning, you may end up going into radio as a profession, or you may not. But it doesn't make what you're doing here any less valuable, because you're going to take something from what you're learning here, whether it's more confidence when you're speaking in public, whether it's understanding, the technical nature of radio. There are a million different things that you're learning just by having your own radio hour. And so I think sometimes we put too much emphasis on the education that we get leading to something concrete, because often it isn't. You see later how it led to what it is that you end up doing. You just don't see it at the time. It's very hard to identify, I think, at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the unique things that we had with the class is actually the midterm was considered like the qualifier. It was sort of you had the option of whether you wanted to take it earlier, in the sense that if you got better than a 75, you would go on to take the hands-on test. And that's when you would, ask questions. Those of us that became interested in having a show, we'd start off with, we'll approach someone that has a show, try to be a guest. And then, of course, our advisors would teach us the audio console and everything like that. And, yeah, it's definitely, sometimes some of us have to, sometimes we develop an interest when we take a class or we learn it on our own eventually. You just never know when you'll end up getting an interest in something. It's fascinating.
Right. Or using your knowledge in something that seems unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a famous article. It was published in, I think, the 70s by an author named Burton Clark, and he called it The Cooling Down of the Community College Student. And what he was maintaining is that rather than allowing and encouraging community college students to aspire to whatever it is that they want to do, we tend to, and I'm not saying this happens everywhere, but that we tend to try to lower people's expectation. Well, why don't you go into X, because X will lead to this kind of job, or why don't you try this, rather than allowing for that experimentation to happen. And that probably could be said of education in general. I think that we have really, in the last 30 years, have kind of vocationalized education in a way that what it is you're learning must lead to some kind of identifiable outcome in the job market. Now, I don't mean to say that. I mean, we're all going to school because it's going to allow us to get a job and to, have a higher income and all of those kind of things. But to forget the journey on the way is really dangerous, I think, because what you learn in every single thing that you do at Cerritos College or any college is going, if you really learn, it's really going to help you in anything that you do, regardless of what that job turns out to be. And so I think what's so fantastic about community college is that because it isn't as expensive as other colleges, we should be encouraging experimentation. But politicians get very nervous about that because they want people to complete, and we want people to complete too. But I think sometimes we miss the point of why we're in school to begin with.
Yeah, sometimes we don't know necessarily what we want to major in. I know I started off as a sociology major, and then I was. Sometimes some people, they'll use a strategy where they want to be full-time, but they don't necessarily want to take all the hard classes, all 12 units being all hard ones.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you want to mix elective. And that's sort of what happened to me. I picked one of the RTV courses, and I was like, oh man, I really like this. And even before that, I remember how helpful the Career Center was back when I believe Dr. Young was around, and he had me take some generator tests. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, oh, well, yeah, you seem to be about helping out people. And I'm noticing some of the classes you've taken. You've taken some child development. You've taken an anthropology course. and you've taken a number of sociology courses. And he looked and he showed me this degree, and he said, we have this liberal arts degree at the same time. You might want to think about it, because if it wasn't for math, you can actually consider getting AA in social and behavioral sciences. But it amazes me because there's this other side of you that's scored on these generators, that's the creative side, that's about, broadcasting and the arts of like acting and so forth. And he's like, you can, explore both, but just remember, go ahead and, think about taking that side AA as well, since you've already basically fulfilled it. It's pretty interesting, some of the degrees that we have quite a bit here at Cerritos.
And a good counselor like Dr. Young is going to kind of lead you in that direction. That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's really, really great. And then I was wondering, you mentioned about how you were working during the student. I'm sure we're all curious. What was the type of jobs you had as your journey getting to where you are now?
Wow. Well, I did a lot of waiting tables, a lot of waitress jobs, and in all different kinds of, eateries and restaurants. And I'm trying to think of some other ones that I could actually share on the radio. No, I didn't do anything that got me in trouble, but I was basically, my routine was I would audition for a play, and if I got in it, and if I was fortunate enough to make money. Now, I first started in LA, and LA has a lot of what they call equity waiver theaters, and what equity waiver theaters means that they're under 99 seats, which means they don't have to pay you. So usually the performances were like Thursday through Sunday. So I would have to find a job, and again, usually it was waiting tables, that I could work, that I didn't have to work on the weekends, or I could work on the day during the weekend, but still be able to make my call time in the evening for my performance. And then eventually I was able to get professional jobs where you're doing shows 8 days a week, and it's actually paying the bills, so that I didn't have to take odd jobs. But anything that was flexible, call center work, or anything that I could do temporarily and not have to commit to a long-term kind of a job is pretty much what I did. And the same in school. When I was in college, I would work on the weekends selling fragrances in like Macy's, and it was Bullock's at the time, and this was back east. I was in school at that time in back east, so I would work all weekend, for X dollars an hour. I'm one of those people who assault you when you walk into the department store asking if you want to try the latest lotion or perfume. But it was actually pretty good money. That was actually a good job. I didn't mind that job because I could, I didn't have to work as many hours and could make the money, and they would let me work on the weekends. So, for me, the job at that time when I was in school, it wasn't the job that was important. It was just whatever paid the bills, and allowed me to make a little money and buy my books and what all of you guys are doing. It's what you do after you graduate that was kind of the thing that I still wasn't sure. I was an English major, and I was an English major because I wanted to write, and I felt like I had my life experience as an actress, and I wanted to stay in the arts, but that I felt like I really needed an education in order to have something to write about. So my time in college was, I took a lot of philosophy classes, I took a lot of English classes, a lot of liberal arts, like what you're talking about, because I felt that gave me the most information about, history and world perspectives and things that would give me something to write about, something that that wasn't just my opinion about things, but something that actually, that I had done the studying and learned about. So that's what I did after school.
So how did you eventually get to Cerritos?
Yeah, well, it doesn't sound like a straight line, does it? So after I graduated undergrad, I worked actually for a few years in the cosmetic industry. And while I was kind of putting my money away and working on my own plays, writing plays, and I used that as my portfolio to apply for an MFA, which is a Master's of Fine Arts in dramatic playwriting. So I went to Carnegie Mellon, which was in Pittsburgh, and they had a very good arts program. And I got my master's in playwriting. And then after that, I moved to New York, and I wrote spec scripts for soap operas. So I wrote for daytime television. And at the time, All My Children and One Life to Live were being produced in New York. So I got in first I was in an internship program for about 6 months where they train you. And then I started writing for the shows. And then eventually moved out to California and wrote for General Hospital. These were all ABC daytime television.
Really? General Hospital?
Yep. But that was a very long time ago. And All My Children and One Life to Live don't even exist anymore, which is really sad.
Which sucks. I used to love One Life to Live.
Well, unfortunately, not enough people were watching anymore, and that's kind of what happened. So this was in the 90s, and what happened in the 90s is that 24-hour news came in, like CNN and MSNBC, and daytime talk shows like The View and Ellen and Oprah and all of those shows that suddenly were the times that people used to watch daytime television. There was so much more competition for traditional soap operas and all this other daytime programming. And so soap operas went from having a huge market share down to, 1-2 million viewers. And that's pretty much what happened to the daytime television market. So I could see the writing on the wall toward the end of the 90s. So I started teaching. I worked at South Coast Repertory Theater, which is a theater in Costa Mesa, and worked in their literary department. And I was still doing some TV writing, but not that much. And I started teaching at Norco Community College out in Riverside, and that's when I got really, really interested in the community college and community college students. So I was teaching theater, and then that eventually led me to a administrative role. I was the Dean of Fine Arts over at Rio Hondo, just up the road. So for 7 years, I was Dean of Arts there, and then came to Cerritos as Vice President almost 3 years ago. So it was kind of a slow evolution. It wasn't like I said, this is what I'm going to be and do. It just, like most things, you follow them one step at a time, the things that you're interested in, and then they kind of evolve and opportunities come in different areas, and next thing you know, you're an administrator at Cerritos College.
How was the experience teaching?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. And I learned so much more from my students than I probably taught them. But what I really liked was introducing a lot of my students. I would say the vast majority of my students really had not gone to the theater before. It was a new experience for them. So that was really exciting to be able to share something that I love deeply with people for the first time and see the light go on. And, I knew that most of the students taking my classes were not interested in doing theater as a profession, but trying to make it relevant, and my hope was that at least after the class that people would still want to see theater, or at least know how to choose what kind of theater to go to. And we because I was also working at South Coast Rep at the time too, we did a lot of theater going, so we would go to see theater at the South Coast Rep and be involved in some of the backstage projects at the theater. So I think, anyways, it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
So tell me about your role here at Cerritos. What exactly is your title? What does it do?
Well, when I was a student, I never met a dean or a vice president, nor was I particularly interested in that. So I have to keep that in perspective. Most students at Cerritos don't know who I am, but So what I do as a vice president is I oversee all of the instructional programs. So we have 9 divisions here at Cerritos. Divisions mean science, engineering, and math as a division, liberal arts as a division, fine arts as a division. So all of the programs that are clustered in each division, the deans report to me, and I work with the deans and also the faculty and students as much as possible to make sure that our programs are actually leading to the outcome that we say they are, and that we're staying on top of new ideas and trends, and just making sure that people can do their job and are supported in doing their job. So I would say the most of my time is spent in just making sure that people have the resources to be able, for faculty to have the resources to teach students, and for deans to have the resources to support their faculty in the work that they do.
And I know that we have, quite a bit of structure. I didn't realize until more this year, getting to know what's shared governance. Can you explain what shared governance is?
Well, it's funny you ask, because the reason I was late today is I was in a meeting about putting on a workshop for participatory governance. So participatory governance is part of the legislation, which is AB 1725, and that was passed in the 80s, saying that faculty and staff should have a say in what goes on at the college, and students as well. And so all of our committees have a student representative, and make sure that we have a certain number of faculty on each committee, certain number of managers, and that the initiatives that we have on the college and the decisions that we're making, at least we've allowed people to have input on those decisions. It gets a little tricky because we share in governance, but that doesn't mean that somebody doesn't still make the decision. But we should be sharing in the decision making. And, when it works, it's great. I mean, there's very few organizations across, the world that are as participatory as education. If you work in a Fortune 500 company, there's not a whole lot of shared governance going on. Usually somebody makes a decision and everybody else follows that decision. So that's, I think, makes colleges very unique, because we do, it should be working that way anyways. We should be sharing information and have things as transparent as possible, and allow people to have input.
Being a VP, what's your typical amount of meetings you have to attend? It seems like a lot of meetings here.
Yeah. Well, too many, Rob. I don't know what to do with that. That's my resolution this year. All the CIOs across the state were asked to submit their New Year's resolutions, but it had to be something to do with your job. It couldn't be like, I want to lose 10 pounds or something. It had to be something about our job. So my New Year's resolution was in reducing the number of meetings and reducing the amount of time, and making sure that when we do have meetings, that we're actually productive. I don't know how well I'm doing about my New Year's resolution, but I have a lot of meetings because there's just a lot of things that are going on campus, and I just think it's important that I'm available to talk with people and to do things like this, and but trying to make sure that the meetings that we go to are actually accomplishing something. I think that's a worthy goal. So yeah, I have too many meetings.
We'll be right back after these public service announcements.
Welcome back to The Cat Show. Up next, we have Nico. Nico is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right. A group known especially for their sunspot sleeping, ball chasing, leg rubbing, couch purring, bed leaping, and of course, companionship.
Wonderful. And what breed would you say Nico is?
I'd have to go with a tabbyish Persian kind of mix.
Tremendous cat.
I'd also like to point out her coat's wonderful mix of colors. Is it black, gray, black, brown?
Somewhere in between.
Indeed.
It's always special when we get to see a cat like this.
Just look how she struts.
It's like she owns the place.
And how she's so incredibly cute in her indifference to commands.
A strong-willed feline.
Ah, and see how she curls up and cuddles her person.
The pitch on her purring is simply perfect.
Nice one.
I know. Fantastic cat.
Fantastic indeed. But really the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Nico is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. There are safe, simple ways your child can help stop bullying. Teach your kids the 5 bystander tips. Number 1, tell a trusted adult like a family member, teacher, or coach. Number 2, help the person being bullied get away from the situation. Number 3, be a friend to the person being bullied. Number 4, set a good example. Do not bully others. Number 5, don't give bullying an audience. Visit stopbullying.gov to learn more safe, simple ways your child can be more than a bystander. A message from the Ad Council.
People don't much listen to the radio on the radio anymore. They listen on their desktops, they listen on their laptops, they listen on their tablets, and mostly they listen on their cell phones. You can hear WPMD on great streaming sites like TuneIn and Streema and Radio Shaker, and now you can listen to the place where people make a difference on our new WPMD app. It's free and ready for you to download. Just go to appcatch.com, that's appcatch.com, search for WPMD, then hit launch, and you're with us. It'll work on your iPhone, your Android, your BlackBerry, your iPad. You can take WPMD with you wherever you go, whenever you go. The WPMD app. One more reason why WPMD on the net is the place where people make a difference.
Welcome back to the Falcon Spotlight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Rob JF, here at Cerritos College WPMD radio station located in the city of Norwalk, California. So like I was saying during our public service announcement, we had a student who he was very involved, and well, just to give a background of how this show started. So Tito was a student who he was very involved here at the production class, and he took it the maximum amount of times, and he was a great leader here for broadcasting, and he actually was in the industry. He would always wow us with pictures of lots of celebrities he would meet when he would work at a radio station, and an award was named after him. There's some great prestige that all of us would look forward to winning the Tito. It was amazing. So Tito was pretty active, and I had heard that at one time he had a show, and it was called Ustopia, and it was all about clubs. And then after Tito, pretty much, I hadn't really heard that, of such a show as his. And then I was like, hey, well, we're Falcons. I don't necessarily see the word Falcon in the show yet. And in 2012, I decided to create Falcon Spotlight. And it honored the tradition that he did of the clubs, but also I would reach to student government and basically any community figure, and as well as faculty, and that's how it got started. So Tito has been like the guy that we looked up to from here in the studio. We've had quite a bit of people go on to be enter the industry, and that's one of the unique things about our this particular major is it requires us to get an internship at a TV or radio station, and that's my next step. But right now I have to right now I'm trying to focus on the math classes because that always I've left it for last. That's the one struggle that that's the one thing that I procrastinated on.
You and me both, Rob.
Oh,
You and me
yeah.
both.
Yeah, mathematics.
You're not alone.
Not at all.
Although we are trying to get students to take their math earlier, because wouldn't it be great if you were done with it by now and you could just focus on the stuff you really love?
Mm-hmm. And now, isn't it? I forgot, how did it go? It's always best, or I'm not sure if it's necessarily mandatory, but it's always best, I think, to have either English or math at all times. I know I've heard that before.
Well, it's definitely best to have English and math at all times in high school. That's, I think, one of the biggest problems right now is that because in high school, you normally are taking your math specifically in your first 2 years of high school. And a lot of people, by the time they come to Cerritos, they haven't done math for at least a year and probably 2. For sure, nobody's signing up for math in their senior year unless they really, really, really have to. And math is a practice skill. So the problem is that when you come to Cerritos and you haven't been practicing math for a while, you're assessing in much lower than what you probably actually know. It's just that all of us have probably forgotten most of the math that we learned. So that's a really big problem. So we're working with our K-12 partners to try to make sure that that students are taking math and English every single year of their high school. And then when you get to Cerritos, you would assess higher in math and English, so there's fewer levels that you'd have to be taking here at the college. And then in terms of taking it all times, you probably don't need to be taking math and English your entire career here at Cerritos. But it is better to take it first, again, for those very reasons that you forget what you've learned. So the longer you delay math from high school, you're just that much further away from a practice skill. You know, if you were a piano player, you wouldn't go for 5 years and then expect to sit down and play, a sonata, right? You just, you couldn't do it because you hadn't been practicing. But we don't think of math in the same way. So, no, I don't think you have to take math every semester at Cerritos, but it's definitely important for students to take math as soon as possible so that they don't forget what they've learned in high school. And if math isn't going to be something that you need for transfer, I mean, you need your base, you need your entry math, but if you're not a STEM major, absolutely encourage students to take their basic math and their college level math as soon as possible. If you're a STEM major, that's different, and you're going to be taking math throughout.
Yeah, math, I know sometimes it intimidates us.
I know.
It's my third time taking Math 80.
Yeah.
You're taking Math 80?
Yeah, I want to get out of here as soon as possible, so I'm taking it again for the third time. And then hopefully next semester I take statistics, so I can take research methods to get out of here. I'm sorry, I love this campus. Don't get me wrong, I love this school, but I've been here for 4 years.
And we want you to go too, not because we want you to go, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I want to. My dream is to go to Cal State Fullerton, so this is helping me get there.
Good.
But right now, the one thing that I'm struggling with that is keeping me here is math.
Yeah. Well, you might be interested to know that there's been a lot of research done across the state, and have you heard about a thing called Path to Stats or Statway? Have you heard about this?
No, I have not actually.
So what Path to Stats is that a student would skip their intermediate algebra and so basically at about Math 80, you would be taking a Path to Stats course, which would incorporate algebra, but also statistics. Now, you'd still have to take your statistics class, your college level statistics, but what they've found is that students do much, much better in statistics than they do in just raw analytical algebra. The problem is that intermediate algebra is required for you to take your statistics class, which you're going to do great on once you get there.
I hope. My Math 80 class doesn't start up until the end of this month.
Well, you're going to do great, okay?
I hope, fingers crossed.
You just have to do great.
Yeah, I have to.
Yeah, whatever it
I don't wanna be
takes,
here
you have to
another
do
year.
it. But what they found is that this Path to Stats is a much more successful path for most students. So you would ask the question, why aren't we doing it, right? Well, we would like to be doing it, but the UCs and the CSUs won't accept it for transfer.
Really?
They accept statistics, but not without intermediate algebra. So what you're doing is fine because they will accept that. But if we incorporated your intermediate algebra into a new kind of statistics pre-statistics class. You went to Cal State Fullerton, Fullerton would say to you, I'm sorry you haven't finished intermediate algebra. You have to take intermediate algebra, even though you had passed statistics.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to struggle with right now, is to get not Cerritos to accept this, but to get the other colleges to accept it, because we don't want you not to be able to transfer. You could
Yeah.
finish at Cerritos, but if you can't transfer, then it doesn't really, it's not going to help
Yeah.
you. So that's a problem too, is that all the systems aren't aligned. They're not all talking to each other. So that we got to fix that one.
Communication is key.
Yes.
Now, we're down to our final 5 minutes, and I was wondering also, are there any, anything that you would like our students and our general, even our audience who are also college students, what advice do you have for them?
Oh, well, first of all, I think Cerritos students are awesome. Every day, I'm just so impressed with everybody that I meet, you guys included. I mean, it's just, we've got great students, so that makes me very proud. I'm also really, really impressed that we have a really active student body, students who are making their voice heard and who are really demanding that we pay attention, because I think that's really essential, and I hope that no student on this campus feels that that's not welcome. There may be complications, which makes things seem really simple on the outside that isn't so simple, but as long as we're talking, as long as we're dialoguing, as long as we hear from students, hopefully that helps us make the right decision, because it's your future. So I guess my words of wisdom are, it's always your future. Don't let anybody else predetermine what that future is going to be. Yes, you have to work within certain systems, but that doesn't mean you're powerless within that system or powerless to make your voice heard. I spoke last year at the transfer celebration, and 2 students talked before me, and I was supposed to share words of wisdom. And I'm telling you, I was so completely blown away and inspired by hearing these 2 students, one who was about to transfer to UCLA, and the other who was at Berkeley and had come back to share her experiences at Berkeley. And so, when I stood up, I pretty much threw away my speech after I listened to them speaking, because they were just so fantastic. And, what I said to the audience is that, people in positions of power don't have anything more to say than anybody. It's what you do with the information and the power that you have. And I think sometimes we think, professors or deans or administrators or people who have sort of achieved something have more right to speak than anybody else. And I just don't agree with that. So I guess what I want to say to our students is, take math early. Make sure that you're seeking out all the resources that the institution has to offer, and ask your friends, because they're going to be the best resources. And, if not challenge authority, work with authority, and make sure that your voice is valued, because here at Cerritos, I think that's the best thing about our college, is that we have really great students who make their voice heard. And we do hear you. We do actually make decisions and change things based on what our students tell us. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And normally, I usually close my show by asking my guests, what was your goal for the semester, and what's your goal after Cerritos College?
You mean besides my goal of having fewer meetings and shorter meetings? That's my goal. No. Well, actually, the big goal that we're working on this semester, and for next year as well, is we're trying to put together these completion progress reports, so that students know exactly where they stand in their progress, and know exactly what courses that they still need to take in order to complete. Because I think sometimes that's hard information to find. So that's our goal for this semester, and I think we're gonna reach it. And gosh, after Cerritos, well, I hope I finish my career at Cerritos. But after that, I love to travel, and I love theater, and I love hiking, and I love my dogs. So when I retire, I hope I get to do all of those things, especially travel.
Well, I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here on the Falcon Spotlight. Ladies and gentlemen, tune in every Tuesday at 2 p.m. to 2:55 p.m. on WPMD. Those of you who can also access programming on the TuneIn Radio app as well. You just look up WPMD. Also, like my fan page on Facebook, just look up Cerritos College Falcon Spotlight. I'm also promoting my shows. I'm starting to, experiment by using my phone also to record video and then merge that with the sound that I recorded the show, so that there's higher quality sound onto the video of the cell phone version of it, to promote it further, even on YouTube independently, just to further grow my portfolio. So yeah, definitely check it out, and thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.